Worldcoin.
Yeah, Sam Atlman.
Sam Atlman and Worldcoin. Well,
He's been a hot topic lately on this pod, hasn't he?
he's on a roll. Between him and Elon, these new engineer entrepreneurs are just, they're on a roll here. It's almost like a comic book in some ways. I feel like it's like a...
Yeah, sometimes I feel like with Sam Atlman and what we're talking about today, that he's like more focused on the mission to install AI and computer into the ecosystem and not really taking a lot of time to sit back and think about the
long term,
the moral consequence of doing such things like that. So,
well, okay. So Financial Times put on an article, Spain blocks Sam Altman's eye scanning venture Worldcoin.
Worldcoin, i.e. a one world
He didn't
currency.
say USA coin.
He said a world coin, one world currency coin.
Well, I'm going to kick off just a little bit of this article that's highlighted. Spain has moved to block Altman's cryptocurrency project Worldcoin, the latest blow to a venture that has raised controversy in multiple countries by collecting customers' personal data using an eye-scanning orb. The AEPD, Spain's data protection regulator, has demanded that Worldcoin immediately cease collecting personal information in the country via the scans and that it stops using the data it has already gathered. The regulator announced on Wednesday that it has taken the precautionary measure at the start of the week and has given Worldcoin 72 hours to demonstrate its compliance with the order. Mar España Marte, AEPD director, said Spain was the first European nation to move against Worldcoin and that it was impelled by special concern that the company was collecting information about minors. Take note of that. What we have done is raise the alarm in Europe, but this is an issue that affects citizens in all countries of the European nation and obviously other nations. That means there has to be a coordinated action. Just for starters, Worldcoin was co-founded in 2019, and really the incentive behind it for people to participate in this is that they're offering tokens or a cryptocurrency, a Worldcoin of its own, to people in return for their consent to have their eye scanned by this orb, the biometric information, in exchange for cryptocurrency. So
sounds like a mark.
And lastly, we'll stop with this. The scans are used as a form of identification as they seek to create a reliable mechanism to distinguish between humans and machines as artificial intelligence becomes more advanced.
Whew, that's heavy.
How do we get here? How is this even possible?
I mean, I think it's first possible because we live in a world where countries have moved to fiat currency, where it's a currency backed by nothing. And so because it's backed by nothing, it doesn't really hold any value. And so I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but I think it's more relevant to talk about it now, which is this idea of, I always say it wrong. I want to say Gresham's law. Yeah, Gresham's law. Gresham's law, which is this concept that bad money pushes out good money. And some people say it the other way, but good money pushes out bad money. It's bad money pushes out good money, which effectively means that when you have a fiat currency circulating, people will use that to transact. And then the good money leaves the ecosystem, the gold, the Bitcoin, the real estate, the things that hold that intrinsic value. Those things don't trade hands, right? People just kind of hold on to those because it's the only place they can store value because they don't have any value in like the US dollar, for example. So that's happened everywhere. It's happened in the European Union, right? And so something like the Worldcoin is attractive because it's like, well, now look, I can travel anywhere. I can use this currency. I don't have to deal with exchange rates or anything like that. It's acceptable. But the drawback to that is what?
I mean, no sovereignty.
Yeah, correct. So why would a country want to maintain its sovereignty?
Well, I mean, this is part of a bigger discussion, but a country that is not sovereign is not a country at all.
Correct. Right. And so, there's, the IMF, the Economic World Forum, they're all trying to work towards this one world ideology. But the trouble with that is, we can't even if you look at American ideals and the way that this country was founded, it's like we were moving away from this idea of a king. So if there is one small group of people that controls everything, and it's pretty clear that the reason that major governments have moved towards printing money is because they can ultimately, if you control the flow of money, you control the people.
Absolutely.
Imagine that just at a global scale. Right. I don't see that being better. I see that being draconian and worse for us.
Very much so. Very
and
much
so, I mean, more specifically, if you're an American and you're an American entrepreneur and this idea of freedom and independence, which is ultimately everything that we're chasing, I'm going to read this to you. This is from the Heritage Foundation. It says, why does sovereignty matter to America? The United States is a sovereign nation. Sovereignty is a simple idea. The United States is an independent nation governed by the people that controls its own affairs. We're a constitutional republic, democratic republic. The American people adopted the Constitution and created the government.
correct.
They elect their representatives and make their own laws. The founding fathers understood that if America does not have sovereignty, it does not have independence. If a foreign power can tell America what we shall do and what we shall not do, George Washington once wrote to Alexander Hamilton, we have independence yet to seek and have contended hitherto for very little. So the point is, if you enjoy your freedom in this beautiful country that we live in, the idea of a one world currency should actually really bother you. And more importantly, the fact that we have a dollar backed by nothing and we have adopted this Keynesian economic ideology here in the United States, and we keep repeating these same cycles over and over again, and we're doing the same thing and expecting a different result, that should start to irritate you.
Yeah, dude. When we're talking about these topics and we're talking about money, I think one of the things that I've observed over the last several years is just that we struggle to distill things down to really simple analogies and illustrations that we can understand the implications. But in light of those things, and for example, it's like you have money that's not backed by anything, right? So, okay. And we talked about this where the way we spend money as a nation is the equivalent of having a family and you're taking your family's resources and you're using them every which way possible except for on your family. But yet you're coming home and you're telling your family, like, I'm doing a great job. I'm doing a great job. We're going to be okay. In fact, this is really good, and it's our ability to boil down these things to understand what's actually happening. Because if you think about it, we clearly don't have a really sound understanding of what money is as a nation. I would say that.
Yeah. I mean, we did that video going around
Right.
talking to college kids
Right.
of what is money. Nobody could clearly define what money was.
Yeah. And so it's really imperative that as entrepreneurs, as employees, as in our friend groups, we begin to have really simple conversations about, like, what are the implications of these things? What is actually happening around us? And even to that point of what you just said with the founding fathers, you should be very concerned when Sam Atlman, who's not an elected official, he is an entrepreneur. And if you look at the Declaration, he has not been consented to have any form of power over you. And so it's really significant that business people, other fellow entrepreneurs, are making the kind of moves that put them in positions of being in power over citizens on a national and global scale without consent.
Correct.
That is very troubling, and it's going to continue to happen until we continue to make podcasts like this. We continue to have conversations and we stop saying things like, keep religion and politics out of this.
Right.
And no, you better bring it back to the lunch table fast.
Correct. And the bigger issue with most cryptocurrencies, not Bitcoin, because it's not a cryptocurrency, is the fact that it's the same problem it's a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Right.
It's centralized currency controlled by a small
Correct.
segment of people. Like Ethereum is a prime example. That's ultimately controlled by a centralized body that can change the way the code forks at any point in time,
100%.
however they want. It's the same thing with ADA, right? Cardano. And so Bitcoin is the only one that's truly decentralized,
Right.
and that the value is kind of predetermined, and it would take 90% consensus from a decentralized market. I mean, we can't even agree on who would be a president, right?
Yeah.
To get that to pivot and change. And so it makes a case for Bitcoin as a store of value and starting to look at everything you do kind of backed by how much Bitcoin you have. Gold would be another store of value. It's one of the oldest. It's God's money. It is continued to store its value historically. It's not very easily traded, but gold still does carry value because right now, if you're just sitting in cash, you have dollars controlled by nothing that are getting destroyed or backed by nothing that are getting destroyed by inflation.
Dude, this is so wild, dude. When you think about if you have $1 or you have a car or anything that's you consider to be of value, the only reason that it's valuable to you is because there's elements of scarcity within it. Like
Right.
the second I have 47 cars, my one car is not that valuable anymore unless it's the one that my grandfather gave me that I know I can't get back. And so
Correct.
it's just it's so appalling to see the level of disregard that we're wrestling with, and just like,
I think it's just a lack for wanting to do the work to study the history and see how it's played out. You know what I mean? So that's part of it. This is also just another case for why it's valuable to be an entrepreneur, right? Because you can accept whatever bad money, right? We can accept dollars and we can parlay the money that we make and the profit that we make into good money, right? Buy more Bitcoin, buy more gold, buy more real estate, buy more assets, and so being rich in assets and poor in physical cash is actually a really good thing. And if you're an entrepreneur and you have an exchange medium, i.e. a business where I provide a good or a product or a service or something like that, and you pay me for it, then I should be thinking about how to parlay that into other things to stabilize my balance sheet long term.
Yeah, and just think about scarcity. What's more scarce than your actual personal identification, your life, right? As in exchange for a currency, a cryptocurrency that can easily be inflated. The population the supply can easily be regulated and everything else.
Well, and the younger generation just doesn't value it as much, is because they grew up during a time when our currency is effectively worth nothing.
Right.
And so to them, they don't really understand money. They don't understand value, store value, having a currency backed by gold, which is not a concept that they've ever known.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, man. I mean,